Motherhood is easily one of the most challenging things that you can do with your life. But it's not for the reasons most people think. Of course, there's the broken sleep, sibling rivalry, tantrums, snotty noses and poopy diapers, endless laundry and dishes to do. But while those are real and hard, they're not the thing that makes motherhood as hard as it can be. Today, we're going to talk about external validation, or more specifically, the lack of external validation, and why that makes motherhood so hard. We're going to talk about how to stop chasing it and what to do instead to build your own internal validation and self-esteem. Hi, I'm Morgiana Anderson. I'm mom to 8 homeschooled kids, and I'm passionate about helping mothers who are deeply invested in their kids' mental and emotional health, happiness, and freedom. Not just when they're little, but throughout their life. Because parenting is the ultimate long game. If that's you and somehow you don't want to lose yourself in the process of that, you're in the right place. So like and subscribe and stick around. All right. So external validation is when a person's sense of identity, their self-worth, and their confidence really relies on someone else's recognition or approval, or even praise. That's developmentally normal for children. It's nothing to be concerned about. But for adults, it becomes very shaky ground. Of course, since external validation is pretty much baked into our normal life, we think it's normal. We don't think twice about the lack of it until we suddenly feel it. Jobs have external validation in the form of a paycheck, not to mention the sociality with other adults, your annual review, feedback from customers, just the fact that you're getting up and going somewhere and doing something. School is just a ladder of external validation from day one of kindergarten all the way through grad school. Gold stars to grades, passing, clubs. These things are external reinforcers. They're built on that validation. In your friendships, external validation is a very normal interaction. It's a way of affirming one another, and we want to be around people who validate us. So we take it for granted. But then suddenly you hit motherhood and crickets. Pregnancy can be a very validating time, at least from the medical community. As the pregnancy progresses, it's often a source of greater and greater attention. Even strangers, I don't know about you, but in the supermarket, strangers always come up and comment upon how many I have or how many children I'm going to have, or all sorts of things that can be socially unacceptable, except when you're pregnant. There's a lot of attention. Then you have that baby, you get home, and it's just you and the baby. It's just you and the toddler. And the triumphs, the victories, but also the late night, the struggles, the confusion, the deep wearing on your body and your soul. And there's no witness. It's no wonder that for us moms, this sudden drop off in the external validation can drop us into what feels like, if not actually is, a depression. It can make us question our worth, doubt our relationships, resent our precious children, and our husbands who don't seem to be paying the same price or understand how we are. It can make us want to extract that validation from others in some pretty uncomfortable ways that are actually self-defeating cycles. There's one manifestation that's pretty obvious that we're going to start with, but in a minute I'm going to tell you about another way of being externally motivated or motivated by external validation that maybe you hadn't thought of before. So first is the obvious, and this is the more approval seeking. You want people to give you positive feedback. Your kids are so well behaved. You make the best pies. You guys are the cutest couple. Your house looks so amazing. There's nothing wrong with those compliments or validations, but they're the kind of thing that if we come to rely on and seek, we find ourselves sucked into living public lies and hiding our sometimes rocky marriages, our closets that would avalanche if you opened them, the mess stuffed under the bed, or the pantry binging of Oreos and Doritos. We find ourselves forcing our children to behave in ways that can be maybe a little manipulative or unkind because we want them to reflect well on us. Looking right, acting the part, trying to fit in, playing nice, checking what everybody else is doing or thinking before volunteering an opinion. These are all ways that we seek approval. They get us that fix, but often at the cost to our personal integrity, our peace, and our closest relationships. Our kids know the real us, and they know that we hide things from people. They know that on a certain level, we aren't what we seem. We're not trustworthy. They're also intimately tutored in the art of public deception and private hiding, which makes them unstable inside. They don't know who they are because they don't know who we are. And if our partners don't adequately validate us, they often pay the price. We often make them pay in ways that actually don't contribute to a happy relationship for either of us. So that's the more obvious one. We all know when we see it in other people, and we probably know when we see it in ourselves. But there's actually a sneakier one that I know about because that was me. It's less of actively seeking approval, and it has more to do with avoiding disapproval. It's acting like sometimes believing that you don't really care what people think. You don't really care if people approve of you, as long as they don't disapprove. It's also avoiding discomfort, but by seeking to fly under the radar. And that was me. I was sure that I wasn't validation seeking. I did what I wanted. I rarely got pushback. I wasn't loud. I wasn't flashy. I didn't try to fit in. At least I didn't think I did. I didn't change who I was according to who was with me. All of that made me think that I wasn't a validation seeking person until I realized that I was actually so quiet, no one knew enough about me to disapprove of me. I was so self contained, I basically hid any that could cause trouble or ruffle the feathers of anyone. And that led to the very dilemma that forced me to face this issue and to stop relying on external validation. So, which one are you? Let me know in the comments. Are you more towards the approval seeking or more towards the disapproval avoiding? So, this kind of begs the question, what are the real effects of relying on external validation? If it's just baked into life, why is it a bad thing to rely on it? Well, external validation itself isn't bad. It feels good, it's socially appropriate, it's a way that we reinforce each other. It can be healthy. But when you're relying on it, then you're controlled by things that you can't control. And that in turn leads you to try to control others in order to get what you're seeking. You start to feel really resentful. You're handing over your choice buttons, the things that run you inside, to everyone around you, depending on what they might think and how their day is going and what their life is having going on. And you get this stuck in this trap of doing things so people will like you or at least not dislike you, but then feeling resentful for it. So then you don't want to do it and you have that push and pull, that ambivalence, and it makes life miserable. It makes yourself a puppet to other people and you try to make them a puppet to you, but you're not a puppet. You're a full human being with your own ability to make choices, to become more deeply yourself every day, and to find the meaning and joy of stepping off that hamster wheel of chasing validation and into real life. So, how do we get off the hamster wheel? How do we stop chasing external validation? The answer is actually very simple, but very deep. When I first held my first baby as a mom, I was just overwhelmed with a love so intense that it astonished me. And every child since then has brought with it a similar wave of just adoration. It's not because that baby did anything for me. In fact, they just cost me a whole lot of effort and discomfort, to say the least. And I know that I have years of investing my life into them to come. And although I always think they're the cutest baby ever, my rational mind tells me that everybody thinks that about their own baby. So it's not because of something external about them. I am filled with a love and a cherishing because they are my child. Simply because they exist. That child is precious. And so are you. Now, there are times, so the answer to that question is to get off that hamster wheel is to start cherishing yourself. To start holding yourself in the same regard that you hold that newborn baby. When you first look at them, they're precious just for being, and so are you. There are times when cherishing yourself can seem just beyond where you can go. And so here's an easier first couple steps. Accept your imperfections, your very humanity. You're just a person. You're neither as special or perfect as you might like to be, nor as flawed and unlovable as you might fear. You're just like everyone else in that sense, and that means feeling better than or worse than other people is just nonsense. We're all just human together. We all have our versions of a messy house, a rocky marriage, doubts about our changing bodies, challenges with our children. You can only be a better self or a worse self. Here's the tricky thing about that. Sometimes it's not enough to just know that in your head. It just doesn't sink in. It just doesn't hit. It doesn't address the core of that experience. Sometimes that rational cognitive acceptance doesn't go deep enough. It doesn't hit the place you need it to in order to begin to recover from that validation seeking mode. I found myself driving the car home from a play date, crying, weeping, just tears pouring down my cheeks as I felt the deepest pain in my heart. I was suddenly aware of how fully replaceable I felt in everyone's life around me. I remember thinking, I know God loves me and I know my parents love me, but I'm not sure about everyone else. I'm not sure if anyone else loves me. On some deep level, I truly believed that I didn't matter to anyone else. Now, I never would have said that. In fact, consciously, I would have said completely the opposite. But that's the tricky thing about these deep beliefs. Some of these beliefs get written in our hearts in quiet and unrecognized ways, and life just goes on silently tracing them deeper and deeper until we finally uncover them. Realizing the depth of your pain, uncovering those deep beliefs, and feeling what that actually feels like can be devastating and freeing. Look at why you either seek to be seen or to remain unseen, and grieve the pain of the child who learned to protect herself in that way. Feeling your emotions about these experiences can change you in ways that thinking about them never can. If you have felt that and you don't know where to go or what to do about it, you might want to check out my class that's pinned in the comment below. But having felt that, don't stay stuck there. We don't have to remain in that belief. The next step is crucial. This is where we take back that control. This is where we begin to stand on solid ground again. This is where, instead of relying on others' validation, like we did as children, we become the grown-up of our own life. Whether or not our mothers were able to mother us in a way that gave us security, solidity, strong, firm foundations of self-esteem, we now can choose to mother ourselves in a way that can lay that foundation for us now. Ask yourselves these questions and honestly answer them, not trying to make yourself look better than you are or worse than you are. Who am I? Who do I want to be? What do I value? And how am I living my life in a way that embodies those values? Or if it doesn't, how can I change my life so that it better fits what I value? How am I, or how can I, line up my actions and my choices with what I believe and what is important to me so that I can respect who I am and know that I'm the person, just a person like everyone else, but my best self? Sometimes these answers can bring up tough realities, and sometimes we're tempted to back away from them. But when you can answer these questions to your own satisfaction, you're well on your way to building your own self-esteem and an inner peace that is unshakable and will ironically get you more external validation than chasing it ever did. If you wonder how to find out who you are, even how to answer those questions, you might like to watch this other video that I made called How to Become the Mom You've Always Wanted to Be.